I know a lot of you don't want to hear more about COVID, coronavirus, Omicron. I know the response is going to be, give me another. Am I not fed up? I've got it coming out of my ears. Remember, you may get fed up. I may get fed up of COVID and Omicron or any other avatars it might take. But the virus is never going to get fed up of us. The virus has unlimited appetite for human life. The virus will go chasing after us. And you know what happens? Say in modern warfare, look at a tank. A tank can have different kinds of armor. If the tank is threatened by, say, armor piercing shells, then you might have more steel on the tank, right? If the tank is threatened by more of this heat generated thermal shells, you might have more composite armor. Tomorrow, you are worried about drones, then you've seen these Russian tanks going into Ukraine now. They have a different kind of armor system and different kind of stuff to deflect these. So just as these tanks change their armor depending on the threat, this wretched virus also keeps changing its armor. What is the virus's armor? The virus's armor basically is the spike proteins, because those spike proteins are needed to latch onto our healthy cells, because they then grow inside our cells and cause devastation within our bodies. Now, all our treatments, in the sense that all our vaccines so far, all our immune challenge to the virus is built on antibodies. Antibodies that go and in turn latch onto these spike proteins so they cannot invade our cells. So what the virus is doing is, virus's way of changing its armor is to change its spike proteins. That's why alpha variant was one kind, then you got delta variant, which was a lot more infectious than alpha. It was also a lot more lethal, so it caused a lot more fatalities and a lot more hospitalizations. On top of it, the hospital system, the health system got overwhelmed because it was infecting that many more people, and it caused even more deaths. Now what is happening is that while a lot of the world is still dealing with Delta, Europe, America still had a lot of Delta, that this virus meanwhile has become something else, and that is Omicron. We've spoken about Omicron earlier. It emerged, it was first found in South Africa. It is possible that it emerged first in the Netherlands. That's also a country where a lot of people are opposed to vaccination. So whenever human beings are available who have no immunity at all, that's where the virus will invade, and that's where the virus then gets time also to modify itself also or to mutate. So, and there is a lot of traffic between the Netherlands and South Africa. So we don't know where it came from, but the South African scientists, they are brilliant. They have a very robust health system. They found it. Now you know what? Now this Omicron is spreading, and for some reason in India we seem very complacent about it. Very complacent. You know, the first time we thought that, maybe in India because of the lockdown, etc., we ducked that wave. Then once that wave was over, the first wave, then we start believing in the Indian exception, that there is something about us Indians that protects us. So many of us believed it. I may have also bought into it at some point, that there has to be a reason. कुछ बात है कि हस्ती मिटती नहीं हमारी. The virus is not able to hit us as badly as it might have in richer countries like the US, Europe, Russia, etc. That maybe we have more immunity. There was a CSIR paper, peer reviewed in Current Science, which is a respected journal, which said that maybe because of our innate immunity, we've been exposed to so many viruses, dirty water, dirty air, dirty this, dirty that, that maybe we carry some immunity in our system, or maybe it is our BCG vaccination, universal BCG vaccination. So there was the India exception mindset. And for a long time, we bought into the India exception nonsense until Delta came and hit us. And Delta came and hit us in the second wave and devastated the country. Now, even after that experience, it looks like right now that we Indians are beginning once again to succumb to the same dummy. You know, you can fool somebody with a dummy once, but to fool somebody with a dummy twice within 6 or 8 months, you have to be extraordinarily stupid or arrogant or ignorant. Some of that's happening, and that's why you find Government of India also is taking its time talking about the booster, just as they had taken their time earlier in the second wave starting universal vaccination. They took their time. If the same process had started 2 months earlier, which was possible, India could not have started 3 or 4 months earlier, but 2 months earlier they could have started, a lot more lives would have been saved. So once again, there is complacence on Omicron, and in today's Cut the Clutter, I am sharing with you data which is troublesome, which tells us how dangerous this second succumbing to the India exception could be, because you think, oh, it's growing in South Africa, it's growing in Europe, it's growing in America, but for some reason we only have 38 cases in so many days. But remember, these things take no time ballooning, because 38 can become 3.8 lakhs sooner than we think, because that is the way this virus spreads, and we've also become careless. Now, Omicron itself, look at South Africa. In South Africa, it has already overwhelmed the Delta variant, which means it's a lot more infectious. Now, either it's a lot more infectious, or it's a lot more capable of immune escape, which means it's a lot more capable of reinfecting those who've been vaccinated or who've been infected before, who've had the disease before. Or maybe it's a combination of both, because the fact is that in South Africa, where it was first seen, it has now completely overwhelmed the Delta variant. In UK, also in Denmark, and I hear this on Babbage, the Economist podcast, with lots of experts talking on this. In UK and Denmark, at least those two European countries, majority of the new cases are the Omicron virus. It's been spotted already, WHO says, in 77 countries. And maybe it's been found in more countries, but not all countries have the capability of genome testing. So 77 countries already, you have to presume that almost every country in the world of any size now has Omicron. So Dr. Ghebreyesus, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, the head of WHO, he has said in a statement, he says Omicron is spreading at a rate we haven't seen in any other variant so far. And then he goes on to add that we are concerned that people are dismissing Omicron as mild. And then he goes on to say that surely we have learned by now that we underestimate this virus at our own peril. So he is cautioning, but right now, once again, we are arrogant with the, it's a mild virus, we'll get 3 days of fever and it will go away. But remember, even if it's milder than the earlier version, once it starts infecting so many people, once again, it could overwhelm the health and medical system. And those guys, those heroic people who fought the second wave, they are quite tired already. To subject them to this yet again will be very, very unfair. Now, what is it about Omicron? So it's spreading so fast. Now some studies are available, and some neutralizing antibody studies have also been done in the lab. That study means that you take the virus, you take antibodies from somebody who's already been infected, recently been infected, or who's been recently vaccinated, and you confront the virus with the antibodies and see how effective those antibodies are against different variants of the virus. In this case, particularly the variant of interest today, which is Omicron. Now, this is now showing that this virus both has evidence of immune escape, which means it can escape antibodies, and also a transmission advantage. Now, there is an expert, Professor Mark Jitt, looks Indian, sounds Indian. See his picture on his Twitter page, Professor Mark Jitt from London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who have done a bunch of modeling on Omicron, and he's been quoted in this Economist podcast, who says, look, either this virus is spreading fast, either because it has immune escape. So a lot of people who carry immunity, who carry antibodies are getting infected, or it has transmission advantage, which means it transmits much more easily to people, which means a lot more people who are not yet immune, who haven't taken the vaccine, because in Europe a lot of people have not taken the vaccine, they are getting infected. And usually he says if it's good with one, it should not be good with the others, because if it has immune escape, heavy immune escape, then it may not have a transmission advantage, but it's also possible that it may have both of these that I am adding. Now, 6 studies have been evaluated in this modeling work, and they have shown that while these antibodies do bind, neutralizing antibodies do bind to Omicron, their effectiveness goes down by 45% to 70%. That is a lot. At the same time, and this is from people who've been vaccinated twice, either with Pfizer or with AstraZeneca. Remember, 90% of us in India have taken that same AstraZeneca vaccine called Covishield in India. So 45 to 70% have immune escape, and that is 28 days after the second dose. For those of us now who had our second dose 6 months back or 7 months back, we need to think about this. We need to think about boosters in this country. Now he says that if you give a booster, it helps keep even Omicron at bay much better. And UK Health Security Agency has also found that boosters are making people very well protected against this virus also. Now, look at the vaccination situation. You might say, all right, start giving boosters to people. So then the argument of vaccine equity comes in, that the world is already short of vaccines. Now richer countries or countries, India is not a richer country, but India is rich in one manner. India can produce a lot of vaccines. So India can give boosters to its people. So should you privilege countries which have the ability, either financially or technologically or scientifically or industrially, to give their people boosters? Should you privilege them over countries and populations which haven't had any vaccine as yet? So 41 countries in the world have less than 10% of their population vaccinated, and 98 countries have less than 40% of the people vaccinated. India is way ahead of all of them, but 98 countries is a lot of countries. And once again, it's a question of balancing, because the more unvaccinated people you are, the more chances the virus has of mutating even further. So by the time you end up catching up with Omicron, maybe another variant will become available. So it's important also that everybody gets vaccinated at least twice. So vaccinations are key. In America, for example, a lot of people who are getting infected now are not vaccinated. So Joe Biden, in fact, has quite effectively called it pandemic of the unvaccinated. Now, you may say, okay, if it's pandemic of the unvaccinated, what will happen after Omicron? Because Omicron, as we see with immune escape properties, can also infect vaccinated people. So once again, these experts say that even Omicron among vaccinated people rarely causes severe disease. So maybe you could edit or you can modify what Biden is saying, and you can say that severe COVID is pandemic of the unvaccinated. So vaccination is very important, and where possible, boosters are very important, because right now with every passing day we get more information on Omicron which is worrying, which is not comforting. Today, for example, a study has come out, and this is a study in South Africa, and this study says that Johnson & Johnson, which is a single shot vaccine, Johnson & Johnson vaccine has almost no effectiveness against Omicron. Now, I will come back to this study, but I will also remind you that Moderna CEO had said that his vaccine at this point is not effective against Omicron. And when he said that, there was hell to pay for him, because he got attacked by everybody for being greedy. He just wants people to buy another vaccine, and he said in a few months we'll be ready with another vaccine. But now it's quite evident that many of these vaccines are not effective against Omicron, or not as effective. So maybe this is heading the way of influenza, because influenza virus changing its shape and form every year. So every year in every country we come up with a different version of the flu virus, or maybe COVID is also headed that way. We don't know, but that is one of the possibilities. Now the research on J&J vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, was carried out in Johannesburg University at Witwatersrand. Now, once again, South Africa has fantastic scientific establishments, particularly in biosciences and health. Now, they showed that after 2 doses of Pfizer, right, 2 doses of Pfizer, from 1419 antibodies on an average. There's somebody who had 2 doses of Pfizer had 1419 antibodies on an average. Against Omicron, they are left with just 80. Only 80 are effective against Omicron. That's very low, but still it's a bunch of antibodies to fight Omicron. Johnson & Johnson, originally with one shot, average is 303 antibodies. Against Omicron, undetectable. So it's almost a dud against Omicron. But the scientist there, Penny Moore, who's a virologist at the same university, she says at the same time you can't say it's fully ineffective because we have to presume that some of that humoral and cell immunity will be there. So you've heard about T cell, and humoral means humor is like the fluid in which our organs swim. So that also has cells which develop immune properties. So that should be available, but obviously it will not be as strong and as effective as the antibody. Worry is now increasing, concern levels globally are increasing, and I am very surprised and disappointed that in India we seem very complacent. Even our government is holding meeting after meeting, but no clear communication is coming out. And it's as if, you know, the old story of what does a pigeon do? When pigeon sees a cat coming, the pigeon shuts its eyes. Because pigeon can't see the cat, it starts thinking that the cat can't see it. But we can't be pigeon brained, not for the second time now, and not for the second time within just a few months. But that seems to be happening right now. I see people dropping masks, I see people partying, I see people talking loudly, which we Indians usually do, getting very close to each other while talking. It is a problematic thing. I know we get fatigued, we are all tired with the pandemic, but this hasn't gone away. If anything, it's changing its garb and coming back at it. So we can't be complacent, because if we are complacent, we'll be made to pay for it. So the US CDC has now said that they now see a tidal wave of infections. The British experts have said that in this flu season, the flu season has just started, the regular flu season, Britain could have another 25,000 to 75,000 extra deaths because these new cases are coming in. So those countries are getting worried. We should also get worried. Now, in between all this, I told you in the very beginning, I'll give you bad news and I will also give you some good news. So the good news is that Paxlovid, which is a drug that Pfizer has produced, it's a combination drug. It's a combination of one experimental or investigational antiviral which still only has a number. It is PF 07321332, whatever it means. I'm sure in the course of time it will have some Papu Bilu kind of name, but right now it only has a number, PF 07321332. So this antiviral, this investigational antiviral combined with ritonavir, which is a well-known antiretroviral used for HIV. So both are used in combination. 30 tablets over 5 days, which means 6 tablets a day in bunches of 3 tablets each, 3 in the morning, 3 in the evening. Each set then is 2 is the new drug and 1 tablet of ritonavir. So these work together, and this is now shown, the research has just come out, and there's a New York Times story I'm sharing with you. Research has come out that if treatment starts within 5 days of the infection, then 89% of the deaths are prevented by this treatment. So in fact, they found that of all the people in their trial group who took this treatment, who were on these drugs, only 1% were in hospital beyond 28 days. Whereas in the placebo group that was not getting the drug but didn't know what they were getting, 6.7% were still in hospital on day 28. Then in the placebo group, there were 10 deaths. In the treatment group, there were no deaths. So this is now seen to be quite effective. This is also competition to Merck's drug, which has shown some promise, molnupiravir, which is a repurposed drug. That drug was available earlier. But that drug, one, it's not so effective. In fact, now even US FDA for approvals, etc., there was a big debate. Many people didn't want to approve it. Then I think they turned up their noses, and by a minority they approved it because they found ultimately that its effectiveness was just 30%. You might say it's a killer disease. 30% is also good. I'll hang on to it. But it has some side effects. For example, it mimics RNA molecules to induce viral mutations. To fight a mutant virus or fight a virus in our body, it does some of the same, and we don't know what are the unintended consequences of these things, and also that it causes mutations within the human DNA. That's again uncharted territory. So those are risk factors. With one more drug which had shown some promise, that is the Roche plus a company called Atea Pharma, ATEA, that has now failed its phase 2 trial, disappointingly, and the two companies have announced that their collaboration now has broken down because the drug is not working. The same New York Times story also tells you that the Pfizer drug is also effective against Omicron virus, and it says that it latches onto one of the key proteins on the Omicron surface. It's a protease protein, and it is effective there. So the New York Times in this story quotes Sarah Cherry, who is a virologist at Perelman School of Medicine, University of Pennsylvania, who says this is quite amazing and potentially transformative, this drug. And remember, they clarify that this virologist is not part of the studies. She's not part of the Pfizer trial. So this drug now is causing excitement. I also have a quote from Sameer Lakdawala from University of Pittsburgh, who says, look, we know that this is effective against severe disease, but we don't know if doctors as yet will be allowed to prescribe it as a standard treatment to those with standard risk factors. It will only be given to those with severe risk factors, but who knows, as it's prescribed more in the course of time, FDA will allow it to be given to more people. The US government, Biden administration, by the way, has already bought 1 crore courses, 10 million courses. So one course is 30 tablets. So they have stockpiled that many. Britain has stockpiled about 250,000. Israel is stockpiling these, and many countries are stockpiling these. And I'm sure immediately you will say, how expensive will it be? How much money will Pfizer make? So the estimates right now is that this could be Pfizer's largest selling product in the next year, 2022, selling up to $24 billion worth, and the following year, $30+ billion worth. Because if COVID remains with us, and if COVID also affects in some ways those who are vaccinated, or if we need a vaccine every year, if it becomes endemic, then this drug will be the only solution, and this will be needed. So once again, what Pfizer has done is, Pfizer has now signed with the UN-backed body called Medicines Patent Protocol, that is MPP. Under this, they are going to allow generic production of this drug, Paxlovid, in 95 poorer countries. I presume India will be there. If anything, India will be leading the pack. And Pfizer then says that they will have differential pricing for rich countries, middle income countries, and poorer countries. Now that is what Pfizer says. I know that the trust levels in global pharma are very, very, very low. So we have to see whether they deliver on this promise or not, but that is the promise made.